Shields and swords, feel the wars, fighting my blood, down to the core. Warriors from medieval age, fear the reign of night brigades. Crusades into the room, moving through the temples and tombs. Scared and place, prepare to face. Professor Awesome and the minions of doom. 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 Professor Awesome and the minions of doom.
Hello, minions. So I unexpectedly have a couple of minutes between meetings, and so I wanted to talk about the Snyder Cut of Justice League, and I wanted to address it for a couple of reasons. The first one is a personal one, which is that I didn't like it, which is fine, but in this case, I hated it so much that it made me angry that it even exists as a work of art. And I'm using the work of art in the broadest sense here, right? It is not high art or medium art. It's barely low art. The second reason is that I've had a lot of people ask me about it. Like, have you seen it? What do you think of it? And they're put off by the 4 hours. And they've heard a lot of rave reviews. And I've noticed something interesting. I've noticed that people who saw the 2017 version of the film are praising this as high art. Now, there's a certain element of that no matter what, garbage gets put out, if it has someone in tights and a cape, are going to say it's high art. I'm ignoring those. I'm talking about people who are open to saying a superhero film is bad or stupid. But by the same token, people who didn't see that and have seen the Snyder Cut have, as far as I can tell, uniformly said, what is this garbage? What is this trash? How dare you put this thing out in public? And there's a real disconnect between those two. And so I wanted to address the real serious flaws in the film. I guess I could say there are going to be spoilers in this, but if you don't already know what you're getting in this, then, you're there's not a whole lot more to be said about it. And I also felt, in some ways, I have been a defender of Zack Snyder. People have called him visionary. I've never thought he's visionary. But I've always thought that he's someone who had ideas, like real ideas, and he was trying to do those ideas, and he could never quite bring them to fruition, right? Whereas someone like Joss Whedon is a kind of McDonald's, of movie making, right? He's not going to go for anything big or interesting, but you know what you're going to get, right? Just like McDonald's. No one ever goes to McDonald's and says, that's the best meal I've ever had, but you get what you expected, and that's what you get out of Joss Whedon. And so I've been a real defender of Zack Snyder, even though I didn't think he was visionary, and now I think I can, that assumption I had about him was true. I just thought that he needed a chance to do what he wanted. Well, now we see what he wanted, and I'm afraid I have to take back every nice thing I ever said about him. So to put it in a nutshell, if you haven't seen this, if you're thinking about watching this film, why shouldn't you see it? The meme, I'm 14 and this is deep. This is that meme brought to life. This is emotionally barren, immature in every way. And to sum it all up, the closing credits are a single 6-minute long cover of Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah, which is right there. Immediately you should go like, oh, hallelujah. Like that is the song that when you're 14, you think is, oh, that's so meaningful and deep. And then anyone who has reached adulthood at that point should be like, oh, no, that is something completely devoid of any kind of spiritual or intellectual merit at all. And so we have this stretched out over the length of this thing. And that's essentially it. It is something that if you're 14 years old, probably this will seem like a very deep and important movie to you. By the time you're 16, you should be like, what is this nonsense? So let's just sort of talk about the big problems first. So if Batman v Superman was about mommy issues, this one is mommy issues plus daddy issues. And this is another way that's a kind of I'm 14, this is deep. Almost every character is motivated by I'm upset with either my mom or my dad. Now I know that comic books are often aimed at children, but it isn't children that I'm hearing this kind of should I watch it from. So if you are not even a full adult, right? If you're an older teenager, you should immediately go like, oh, come on, what is this? And it is really pathetic watching these actors who are, in their 30s and 40s and older, 50s, complaining about their mom and their dad. It's off-putting, really. And so you've got like Cyborg, who's much more of a primary character, I guess, than in the Joss Whedon version, which, as I said, I didn't see. He's almost completely emotionless, except that he hates his dad. The character of Steppenwolf, all is about daddy issues too, right? So that's the kind of big thing. Like anything, this seems to be about people who hate their parents. And this is how they're going to enact that. Either they're good or they're evil because of this. The soundtrack of it is awful and off-putting and terrible. It is long, slow ballads. Very little actually happens in this film. There's no reason it needed to be longer than 90 minutes, and it's 4 hours. And one of the reasons it's so long is not really that there's character development. Instead of having actual character development, these long ballads. I remember I'm 20 minutes into the film, and I text the fella who recommended to me that I watch the film. And I said, this movie would be 10 minutes long, or would be 5 minutes long if it weren't for the ballads. And I was kind of joking, but by the end, I think that might be true. This movie might be 90 minutes long if you take out all the kind of slow, ponderous, shockingly emotionally barren montages. So, to give you a sense of besides the sort of lack of emotion, the lack of any kind of non-tween, not even teenage level, tween level intellectual or character development, the movie makes no sense logically. So the first kind of crime that we really deal with is something which moment I felt like, well, this might be interesting. There's this kind of it looks like a bank robbery, but it turns out, no, these are terrorists. And they're going to level 4 city blocks with this bomb that they have. And when this begins, I think, oh, okay, this is a reverse Die Hard. They're going to do something interesting here, right? So instead of, and that this is going to be part of some larger thing. It is not. It is just a chance for Wonder Woman to do some very pointless heroics. And what I mean by that is this. So let's start with the plot of these are suicide bombers. They plan to blow this place up and kill a bunch of people. Okay, so they're suicide bombers. Number one, it's not clear why there need to be so many of them. Suicide bombers don't usually act in these huge groups. Number two, there's a timer on the bomb. Well, if this movie had been made in 1960, that would make sense. But people know enough about suicide bombers now to know you usually have a dead man switch at least, but you definitely don't have a timer on the bomb. And then finally, why be in that location at all? Why go into a place you have to break into? If it's going to level 4 city blocks, just stand out on the street, be parked in a car. We just had a situation in, was it Nashville or Louisville? I can't remember where it was. But anyway, where someone literally just blew up a vehicle. And in this case, Wonder Woman jumps to action because she happens to be nearby. And this is some of the very on-the-noseness stuff, right? She's standing on a Statue of Justice. She then, to save everyone, instead of stopping the guy with the bomb, does this kind of stopping of bullets instead, and then busts out the wall of the building that she's supposed to be trying to save. Very much the definition of we had to destroy the village to save it, to liberate it. And this kind of this, I think, right here in the beginning gets to the mindlessness of the plot itself. Because the central MacGuffin of this plot are these 3 mother boxes, that there are 3 of these that came to Earth that Darkseid brought to Earth, the villain brought to Earth thousands of years ago, and different parts of the the Atlanteans have one, the humans have one, and the Amazonians have one mother boxes, and they're trying to keep them apart. Okay, so this is the MacGuffin, fine, but here's the problem. Okay, so we see a flashback to this. All that Darkseid has to do is put these 3 things together, and he destroys the world. That's all he has to do. So first, why doesn't he just do that the second he gets there? Second, if he's going to do that, why does he do that where there are these armies? He happens to be, this is at a time when only, I think there's like a Green Lantern Corps person who can fly. Like, nobody can fly here. He's got spaceships. Just hit us from the sky. Just go out in the middle of the ocean and, just go to some island and do it and just destroy the world that way. All right. Maybe he was just too arrogant. Maybe he didn't think about that. Maybe his whole plan making no sense is just part of showing how arrogant Darkseid is, and he just wants to take over the world. Okay, fine. But now it's still a pointless MacGuffin, because later on, when Steppenwolf shows up, the main villain of this particular film, when Steppenwolf shows up, he's trying to get these mother boxes together to conquer the world, but we're told over and over again that he has conquered, I think, 5,000 plus worlds, or was it 50,000 worlds? Anyway, thousands of worlds without the mother boxes. He doesn't need them. It would just be, this would be easier. This would be easier way to do it. But they've literally done thousands and thousands of worlds without this. They don't need the mother boxes at all. Which then, for no particular reason, apparently realizing that this is a stupid MacGuffin, they throw in a second stupid MacGuffin, which is the anti-life equation. The Earth has the anti-life equation. If we get this, all life will be destroyed. Okay, and that would suck for people on other planets, but with the exception of one pointless character in this, everyone is from this planet. Everyone lives on this planet. And before Darkseid got the anti-life equation, all life on this planet would be destroyed or enslaved. So why do we need that MacGuffin? It has no point. And that gets to the kind of lack of emotional resonance throughout this, we see this later on. We have a similar sort of scene where it's clear that the lack of emotion is stopping things from going. So there's one point in which Cyborg has to kind of hack into these mother boxes, and Wonder Woman says, "Oh no, Cyborg, if you do," who, by the way, Gal Gadot should just be a stunt woman. She cannot do a line reading to save anyone's life. Wonder Woman is a super villain as far as I'm concerned, in her inability to give a simple line reading. But she says, "Oh no, if you do this, you could die." Yeah, he could die. And if he doesn't do this, he will definitely die. So, I mean, maybe 2 minutes later. So it doesn't, even that kind of like, "Oh no, Cyborg, you're in danger if you do this." If there's a nuclear bomb and we're all standing around it, and I say, "Well, I'm going to try to defuse this," and someone says, "Oh, be careful, you could get electrocuted by that." That's not the biggest problem I have. And that's essentially what, that's essentially where they're trying to get the emotional stakes from. And so the only 2 times I think that there is possible for real emotion. So we first see Flash, who's the only interesting character in here, also daddy issues. When we first see Flash, he saves this cute girl. He sees a cute girl and he saves her life. From a really kind of stupid accident. Fine. But they really there's no personality to her. This leads to nothing. And so I thought, oh, well, they're introducing a love interest for him. Nope. She never appears again. She's just a cute girl that he saves. And on top of that, because Zack Snyder is so intent on making it as slow and ponderous as possible, what should be and I think still is a fun scene because he's going so slowly in his saving of her, because he's, everything's in slow motion to him. Instead of being cute, there's a creepiness to him. Like he's very kind of slowly gazing at her and touching her, and the way it's shot doesn't really. It's not. It's very unwholesome, even though the underlying scene I think is. And if we had had a chance to develop this relationship in some way, in any way at all, it could have been. The other, another kind of worst, possibly the single worst scene in the entire thing, and that's saying a lot, start off being the best scene. The only scene with real powerful emotional resonance is a scene in which Clark Kent's mother, Ma Kent, goes to see Lois Lane and to say, hey, listen, you're mourning and you've put your life on hold, and they really connect emotionally. And, I understand what you're feeling, and you have to move on, basically, and convinces her to move on. And that is, I think, one of the, maybe the only emotionally powerful scene that's able to exist. And the second that it's over, we learn that it wasn't Ma Kent at all. It was Martian Manhunter, which means that none of the emotion in the scene was real, and it's all taken away. The only really emotionally powerful scene is immediately destroyed. It's immediately destroyed, as if someone had, linked 3 mother boxes over it. It is shockingly terrible. I guess people with mommy issues, their mommy can't actually do anything correct in this. Which, by the way, gets to an interesting question. What the heck is Martian Manhunter doing in this film other than to say we have Martian Manhunter in this film? He serves no function except to undermine the emotion of one scene. He knows the world is at stake. He knows that the anti-life equation is here. And so if he's like, well, I don't care about Earth, I care about Mars, fine, you have to stop this from happening. Why doesn't he help in the fight if he's watching all this? And he's so deeply involved that he knows the secrets of Lois Lane and Ma Kent. He's deeply involved in making sure that Lois Lane's career doesn't go wrong. But he just doesn't care about the fate of the entire world, apparently. Now, one thing I've heard a lot of people praise is apparently like Steppenwolf's visuals were bad in the Whedon film, I guess. I didn't see it. And his visuals are interesting. I actually thought he looked visually interesting this time. Would it have killed them to sync up what he was saying with his lips? It's like a bad black and white era dubbing of a Godzilla film. What he's saying and his lip movements don't match in any kind of reasonable way. I also heard people complaining that in the original cut, that Steppenwolf doesn't have any real motive. He's just evil. Okay. And he now has motive. The motive is to please Darkseid. The problem with that is, first of all, it's turned him into middle management. Like my boss doesn't appreciate the work I do. Basically, is what's going on here. And then we have Darkseid's motivation, which is now he's just evil. So you've just made him mid-level management for the same problem that you had before. So I wish that would work. I see what they were trying to do there, but it doesn't really work. Some other quick hits, like there's this scene in which there's a kind of battle under the harbor in this underwater area, and the wall busts out, and suddenly Aquaman appears, as if he was hanging out in Gotham Harbor, hoping something bad was going to happen. What is he doing there? It is totally unclear. There's no reason for him to be there. He's already said he doesn't want to be... First of all, he has no reason to know they're going to be there. Second, he's already said he doesn't want to be part of this. Why is he there? Just because the plot calls on him to be there. In the same way that the plot just called on Wonder Woman to be where she was. There's an interesting thing with Batman where he's not quite sure whether he wants to make him darker or not. And so Batman doesn't still doesn't kind of have personal guns, but he has this huge vehicle called the Nightcrawler, which for one split second, I got very excited and thought like, did he get the rights to get Nightcrawler to cross over from Marvel? Because that would be cool. But no, Nightcrawler's a vehicle that's got like big guns on it. And so Batman's no gun, like he won't hold a handgun, but he will fire missiles at things and have all sorts of other essentially Gatling guns. It seems a little legalistic there, Batman. And then finally, when we get to the end and they're trying to, in the end, how do they defeat Steppenwolf? Well, they bring Superman back to life, which comes as no shock. And he just punches him. Like all the rest of it is pointless. The whole, like, there's this whole time travel thing. Everyone is supposed to be given a part. But truthfully, if they had just woken up Superman 10 minutes earlier, it would have ended the same way. They could have gone home, lounged around while Superman just went and punched him over and over again, because that's really all that happens. The Superman just comes in and punches him, and Steppenwolf can do nothing about it at all. So I guess in the end, I want to say I actually have some sympathy for Joss Whedon for this apparently terrible version that no one liked and I didn't see. And the reason I have some sympathy for it is, when I look at the materials here, let's imagine that I'm brought in as a director and this is what I'm given. A lot of people complain that it's confusing and the humor in it doesn't really fit and is off-putting. Well, I think I would try to confuse it too. I think I would leave out as much detail and backstory as possible too, to turn the mother boxes back into real MacGuffins, because the more you understand about them, the more it becomes clear that this doesn't make any sense. And at least by taking the raw materials that you are given and making them confusing, maybe people will not realize it didn't make sense. In fact, I would argue that, well, we'll come back. This is the main idea here. The other thing is, like, what about the humor? When you got this slow, ponderous nonsense of people who are like, oh, my mommy left me to be raised by a loving family, which all these characters seem to have, every time that we see that, trying to come in and say like, all right, this is ridiculous, juvenile level emotion. What can we do to show that we know the silliness of this? Let's have some humor. I could see doing that too and trying to inject it too. And so I think ironically, here I find myself, after spending a long time trashing Joss Whedon and saying, I think Zack Snyder needs his chance, find myself for once saying, you know what? I wonder if Joss Whedon didn't do the best thing that could be done to this thing. Again, haven't seen it. Is it garbage? Probably, because I look at the raw materials here and the raw materials aren't very good. And so the confusing, if it was confusing, that's because when you understand it, it doesn't make any sense. And so I guess this video is here not just as a denunciation of Zack Snyder and saying like, I don't ever want to see anything Zack Snyder's X. I don't want to see that thing again. But I do want to say like, still I feel like Joss Whedon has gone into long decline over the decades, but I feel for you, Joss. I see what you had to deal with, and I get some sympathy for you on that. So, I'm sure I've gotten a lot of hate from people out there who saw the Joss Whedon version, and now they're mad at me because I said bad things about the Zack Snyder version. And the truth is, like, you can like it if you want, but let's not pretend that there's adult emotion in this thing.